The 52nd book that I completed in 2024 is A Decent Life Morality for the Rest of Us by Todd May. This is one of the best books that I have ever read. It will make you want to be a vegetarian, that's for sure. Let me read the chapter titles to you, there aren't very many. Altruism or decency, decency toward those around us, widening the circle, more distant others, widening the circle, non human animals, politics and decency, and then our stories and our values. Um, I think the reason why I like this book is because Todd May is just very realistic. He does not argue that in order to be decent, we must live perfect lives. Instead, he argues that we must do the best that we can do. And he brings up really interesting examples. For example, we think about poverty that's far away from us and we want to help people that are far away from us, but we often don't think of poverty that's near us. And that very much applies to where I live. I live in Northwest Indiana, and Gary, Indiana, a very impoverished city, is in our backyard. And most of the people that I know have nothing good to say about Gary. Even the people that would send money to Ethiopian children to feed them would send money far away to help the impoverished, but the people in Gary don't deserve our support at all. He also brings up some really interesting ideas about animals and about what it means to raise animals in America, in the Western world, and what it means to eat those animals and what we're putting in our body. Some absolutely horrific images in that chapter that I will never forget, and I have been trying not to eat meat since I finished this book, which is not going to be easy for me. But I mean, I've seen movies, I've read other books, I've seen things on television, I've watched YouTube. Nothing has ever made me want to be a vegetarian more than this book and the chapter on non-human animals in this book. But he also poses interesting paradoxes as well. So, for example, he brings up before 1973 and when abortion was legal, and he brings up women who had babies that maybe would have had an abortion had it been legal in their state. That baby that the woman has grows up to become this adult that accomplishes and achieves things and makes the world a different place. And we wouldn't ever want to take that person out of the world. And yet, in the beginning, we wanted to never at all bring that person into existence. So it's an interesting paradox. He does that throughout the book with several issues. Another thing in the book that I've experienced, I had a former student who did 2 tours of duty in Senegal, and she helped build wells for villages in Senegal because they were walking miles to get clean water. So she helped build a well, and I've seen pictures, and she was very much embedded in the African community, assimilated in the Senegalese culture. And she came back to the States, and the first thing she did was she got a $100 haircut. And this is one of the most authentic, good people that I have ever met in my life. I mean, she just wants to make the world a better place. And if she could have stayed in Africa, I think she probably would have and never gotten that $100 haircut. And I asked her why that was okay. And she said because she lives in America and because she did her duty and because decency doesn't force her to get or spend a lesser amount on herself just because there are people that are in need. Now, you can take that to the extreme and suddenly we're selfish. I don't think she was being selfish after 2 years in Africa of getting a $100 haircut. So obviously we're talking within certain measures, right? But that is the kind of decency Todd May would have approved of my former student getting that haircut. And then finally, if you are a fan of The Good Place, Todd May is brought up several times. I don't think this book is ever brought up, but Todd May and other books that he's written are brought up on the show. And there is no doubt in my mind that the actors and the writers read this book as they wrote The Good Place, because it seems heavily influenced by this book. Great, great book. Highly recommended.